Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. Now I'm sure the thumbnail and title of this video has already ruined the surprise, but just on the off chance it haven't, you've guessed it, we're going to be reopening the park this summer. So in today's video I'm going to give you a bit of a heads up as to what that's going to look like, and as usual Skylar's decided to sit on me for this intro. Now just to be clear, what we're doing this summer is not a replacement for the longer term plans that we've talked about in our previous videos. They are still going ahead. This is just something we're doing to bring some life back into the park, but also to help keep the park afloat whilst we pursue those longer term objectives. So this video is going to be broken up into two parts. The first part I'm going to be talking about some of the specific events that we're going to be hosting this summer and how you can get involved in them. And then in the second part of the video we'll be talking about the public operation of the park that's going to be happening this summer, as well as what you can expect to see on the hill during our summer of riding. So starting with events and in chronological order, the first event we're going to be holding this year is a round of the Stockport World Series on tour. Now if you've sat on a bike at any point in the last 10 years, you'll have no doubt heard of Farmer John. He has to be one of the most well-known and well-loved characters in the UK mountain biking scene. Not only does John operate an amazing riding venue up near Stockport, but every year he also hosts an amazing series of races. And to celebrate the reopening of the park, we have partnered up with John and Borderline Events to bring a round of this World Series to Revolution Bike Park. Now this will be a push-up only event centered around the lower part of the hill. The park will open for this event for practice on Saturday the 29th of June, and then on the Sunday the 30th of June will be some limited practice and the actual race runs. If you've ever raced one of Farmer John's events before, you'll know roughly what to expect, but you can find more details on the Borderline website, and as of the release of this video, the tickets for that event are now on sale. Links for this event and all the events we talk about in this video are in the description below, so if you want any more information, head down there and you'll find what you need. So the next event I want to tell you about is what we are calling our 50-to-1 sunset session, and that's going to be taking place on Saturday the 17th of August. So this will be a ticketed only event on that Saturday, and essentially it's going to be a bit of a chilled out riding session based around the iconic 50-to-1 line. So the plans for this one are still a little bit up in the air and being defined, so there'll be more info coming out in the next few weeks on this one. We'll also have vision running, we'll have far side jumps running, and at least some of the sort of top section of red free rides. So for those who need a warm up or aren't quite ready to jump straight onto 50-to-1, we'll have other options available. The guys from the 50-to-1 crew will be down here, and we'll almost certainly be running some kind of mini events, think kind of whip off sort of jump competition, not like formalized races or anything like that. Again, just a bit of a chilled out day. Later on in the day we'll also have some music running, we'll have some food on site, all centered again up here, and essentially it's just going to be hopefully a pretty fun day. Come down, hang out with the 50-to-1 guys, ride the 50-to-1 track, and yes, not the same pressure as a race, just a chill out riding session. So like I say, we'll have a number of different things running, so there'll be lots of various options, but just bear in mind that this is going to be an event that's sort of aimed at the more experienced riders and those who are sort of comfortable and capable of riding tracks like the 50-to-1, so it might not be everyone's cup of tea. Tickets for this one obviously not available yet, but they will be coming out hopefully some point in the next few weeks to a month's time, and again we'll be announcing that in a future video, so remember to subscribe and follow along for more info on how to get onto that event. So next, we've also partnered with Gravity Events to bring another mini downhill race to the park this summer. It's also worth noting that this will be the last round of the Gravity Event series for this year, and I think it's quite a fitting end to the series to end it back here at Revolution. Similar to the Stockport World Series event we're doing earlier in the year, this will be a push-up only race based around the bottom of the hill. This event will take place on the 24th and 25th of August, and as with most races, the Saturday will be a practice day and the Sunday will have limited practice in the morning and the race runs in the afternoon. This event is also available to book right now. The release of these tickets should be timed with the release of this video, and it's available through the Gravity Events website, the link for which is in the description below. If you're interested in racing this race, I would head over there right now and book up your ticket, because it's likely that this one's going to fill up fast. The final event that we're going to be hosting is at the beginning of September. September, and I'm sad to say this is a private event, so for most of you won't be able to come along to it, but I just wanted to fill you in on what's happening just for context. This event is going to be the Inter-Services Race. Now, we've been lucky enough to host these events several times over the past few years. It's an event for armed forces personnel, as there are mountain bike teams in most of the forces, and it's a great event which is a lot of fun because you basically get the Army, the Navy and the RAF coming down here to compete against each other in a series of mountain bike events. So we've been very fortunate to be chosen for the Inter-Services Downhill and Enduro Race 2024. These will take place on between September 9th and September 12th, which is a Monday to Thursday. Whilst the plans are still being put together, the basic idea is the first half of the week will be an Enduro style race and the second half of the week will be a full downhill race, which will be hopefully hosted on the far side. Obviously, this event is only open to members of the armed services, but if you are an armed service personnel and you're interested in getting involved, then reach out to your unit's PTI and they should have more information on how to join up to this event. Okay, so that's all the events for the summer talked about, so let's get on to the public operation of the park. So in the last video, I talked about our motivation for the redevelopment of the park, and I said as part of that, James and I had put our heads together and decided, you know what, we're going to go for it 100% hell for leather and try and get the park reopened and get some riding happening. As part of that, when we started to look at doing some events this year, we realised that the work required to sort of tidy up the hill and tidy up the lower area to make events work would also put us in a pretty good stead to reopen the hill for the general public. So over the summer, starting on the 13th of July and running through to the 22nd of September, we are going to be opening the park up for the general public. So I'm sure the first thing you're going to all ask is, how do I get booked onto this? So if you're interested in that, stay tuned till the end of the video because I'll be explaining that later. Now, to be clear, we're not going to be running the uplift service through this time. It's going to be a push-up venue. Whilst it won't be the fully fledged park you remember, not all the trails that were here before are going to be rebuilt and reopened for this summer, we do believe that there's going to be enough on the hill to make it for an exciting day and make it worth your while to come down here. So to give you some context as to what to expect on the hill if you come and ride this summer, I'm going to take you through a few of the plans we've got, and I will caveat this and say that they are plans and we're pretty confident that we can deliver them, but you know, like all plans, they are subject to change. So starting off at the bottom of the hill, as I mentioned in a previous video, James has already begun the work to tidy up that area. Obviously, we're going to have to sort out the car park, so you've got places to park. We're also going to be reinstating our catering, so hopefully you can come back and have some nice local butcher burgers and a nice cup of coffee, particularly if it turns out that the summer isn't quite as nice as we're hoping. We'll also obviously be tidying up all of the trails around the bottom area, so you've got plenty of stuff to session and mess around on down there. Moving up above the bottom area and into the woods, the sort of first significant build we're planning on doing is actually creating a push-up ride-up track. Having this will mean that you don't have to slog your way up that really steep first part of the uplift road. This track will be built between kind of Ghetto and Mainline and should follow a fairly consistent line up to the bottom fire road, which will allow you to sort of push up a bit more easily, or those with e-bikes to hopefully just ride all the way up. In this area, we'll also be fixing up the bottom section of the free ride track, so this will give you the ability to ride from the bottom fire road all the way down to the car park. Reddy McRedface, which is in the same part of the hill just under the red free ride, is also going to get refreshed and reopened, and depending on time and how the plans go, we may actually develop that further into a fully fledged downhill track. We're also planning on rebuilding the lower section of Mainline. It was pretty badly damaged during the forestry, but the line itself is still there, so it shouldn't be too hard to rebuild that. We also have a stretch goal to basically build a black free ride track through there, probably roughly on the line where the old Ghetto track used to be. However, I say this is a stretch goal which may or may not be there this summer, or at least may not be there at the beginning of the summer. Moving further up the hill, we will also be refreshing and reopening Vision and 50-1. Obviously, these iconic tracks are not everyone's cup of tea, but I think there are quite a lot of people out there who would come just to ride those trails, and there's also a lot of people out there, I think, that when we close, we're getting close to being ready to ride them and kind of missed out on their opportunity. So if you have kind of unfinished business there, this is a chance for you to come back this summer and settle it. We'll also be rebuilding / refreshing the top section of Freeride that runs alongside the 50-1. As I mentioned earlier, we're planning on doing the 50-to-1 sunset sessions, and that bit of track will be important for those who maybe don't feel up to riding 50-to-1, or for those who just want something to warm up on before going on to 50-to-1. So hopefully that track will get done. It probably won't be ready right at the beginning of the 2-month sort of riding period, but we'll have it ready as soon as we can. Also, ahead of the 50-to-1 sunset sessions, we want to get the far side jump track, which we built around 2022, I believe, and kind of runs the opposite direction to 50-to-1 and free ride down to the top fire road. But again, it's pretty much intact, and it's a nice sort of fun bit of jump track for the top of the hill. The final big job we've got ahead of the summer is to get the far side back up and running. Now, far side survived probably best out of any of the downhill tracks on the hill. The top section marked the edge of the forestry work, so they didn't really need to go over the track and destroy it. Obviously, we rebuilt it a couple of years ago when we did the felling in the sort of bottom right corner of the forest. So that bit of track is still all there. And it's just the bit between the top fire road and the formerly felled stuff that we need to rebuild. That will then link into the hopefully newly created lower main line to give us a top to bottom downhill track, which will be important for when we're holding the Inter-Services downhill race later in the summer. So hopefully that gives you a reasonable idea of what our plans are for the redevelopment ahead of this summer, what you should expect when you come to ride here. As I said, these are all planned and are subject to change due to various factors in and outside of our control, but just wanted to give you some context as to what to expect. So just to cover off a few extra things for those of you wondering why we're not uplifting, we're still pretty nervous about this idea for this summer. Although we keep using the S word, we have to bear in mind that we live in Wales and there's no guarantee that we're going to get any summer whatsoever, or that the sort of traditional July through September period is going to be nice, settled, sunny weather. It could be blowing a gale all the time, it could be raining all the time, and it could be a pretty miserable experience from a weather perspective. Restarting the uplift requires a lot of complex stuff of getting the trucks up and running, getting them maintained, having the staff to drive them, all these kind of things, and that creates a huge risk of us either basically messing around a bunch of staff who we end up not needing or not being able to pay, or being in a position where we have to pay them and essentially not only not making much money out of doing this summer, but essentially losing a load of money and it being a terrible disaster for the business. If it turns out to be a horrific summer of bad weather, this is likely to be less popular, less people are going to come down, but this model allows us to kind of flex and scale and keep the costs really low, so even if it's not as popular and not as great as it could be, it's still going to be a net positive for the business. That being said, if we do get really lucky with the weather and we get a beautiful sort of couple of months of sunshine and it's really popular, then you may see us sort of throwing on the odd uplift, you know, be it as a sort of ad hoc truck, the sort of pay-per-use type model, which will just be there to, you know, get you to the top of the hill so you can session 50-to-1 for the day. Obviously, with no uplift, the cost per day will be drastically reduced from where it was before. To give you some context, we're looking at in the region of about £15 per day for the ticket. For that ticket, that'll essentially give you full access to the hill to ride to your heart's content, and we'll probably slightly extend the day given it's in the summer, so we're looking at maybe sort of a 9 till 5 type setup. We haven't quite decided whether it's going to be a pre-booked thing or a turn up and ride situation. My gut tells me that at least the first couple of weekends will likely be pre-booked, just so we can kind of manage demand and figure out how things work and what kind of numbers we can accept. But hopefully after that it can become a bit more flexible, where people can just turn up and ride. We'll be releasing another video in a few weeks' time, which will not only coincide with the release of booking, but it'll explain how it'll all work and how to get onto these days. So if you're interested in coming to ride the park this summer, make sure to subscribe to this and follow along on our social media for information when it comes out. So I think that's going to do it, so I'll wrap it up there. I hope you're as excited to get back on the hill this summer as we are to welcome you back here. As I said earlier, if you want to book onto any of the events we're hosting this summer, then check out the description below. All the details are in there. And make sure to subscribe to our channel to be updated when the next video with the booking details comes out, and to follow along with our general journey back to reopening. So as always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and most of all, I hope you'll check back for the next one.